The town of Blackthorn Valley was a ghostly whisper in the wind, hidden deep within the Appalachian Mountains. Once a thriving mining community, it had been abandoned for over a century, left to rot in the shadows of towering trees and thick fog that clung to the ground like a shroud. The locals never spoke of it, but those who dared to pass close by swore they could hear the echoes of pickaxes, the distant cries of men trapped underground, and a haunting melody that carried on the breeze. The legend of Blackthorn had long fascinated Victor Crowe, a seasoned ghost hunter with a reputation for tackling the most dangerous and elusive supernatural threats. He had faced spirits, demons, and creatures that defied logic, but the story of Blackthorn was different. It was said to be cursed, a place where the very land itself was alive with malevolent energy. And at the heart of it all was the Specter of Blackthorn, a vengeful spirit that prowled the abandoned town, searching for those who dared to disturb its eternal rest. Victor had been drawn to the tale of the specter ever since he was a child, captivated by the stories his grandmother would tell. She had been a witch of sorts, one who knew the ways of the old world, and she had warned Victor never to seek out the specter. Some spirits, she had said, are not meant to be disturbed. They are bound to their land by forces older and darker than we can imagine. But Victor was determined. If he could conquer the Specter of Blackthorn Vale, he would cement his legacy as the greatest ghost hunter of all time. The journey to Blackthorn was treacherous, the path winding through dense forests and rocky terrain. As Victor approached the town, he could feel the temperature drop, the air growing heavy with the scent of decay. The trees seemed to close in around him, their gnarled branches twisting like skeletal fingers reaching out to drag him into the darkness. He arrived at dusk, the sky awash of blood red and deep purple. Blackthorn was a ghost town in every sense of the word. The buildings were crumbling, their wooden frames warped and splintered. The streets were overgrown with weeds, and the only sounds were the creak of old timber and the distant call of a crow. But there was something else too, a faint, almost imperceptible hum that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. Victor set up his equipment in the town square, the centerpiece of which was a dilapidated fountain, its once proud statue now a moss-covered ruin. He placed his EMF readers, motion sensors, and infrared cameras strategically around the area. As night fell, the atmosphere grew oppressive, the fog thickening until it felt as though the entire town was submerged in a murky sea. His equipment began to react almost immediately. The EMF readers spiked, the motion sensors tripped, and his audio devices picked up disembodied whispers that sent chills down his spine. But it was the camera feed that truly unnerved him. The footage showed shadows moving, figures darting just out of sight, their forms twisting and contorting in ways that defied logic. Then, the specter appeared. It was a massive figure, shrouded in darkness so complete it seemed to absorb all light. Its face was hidden beneath a hood, but Victor could feel its gaze piercing through him, cold and malevolent. The air crackled with dark energy, the ground beneath Victor's feet trembling as though the very earth was alive with rage. Victor had faced spirits before, but nothing like this. He tried to focus, reaching for the amulet around his neck, a relic that possessed the power to banish the most powerful of spirits. But as he began his incantations, the specter let out a bone-chilling scream, a sound that echoed through the empty town and made Victor's blood run cold. The ground around him began to crack, and from the earth emerged the spirits of the miners, their hollow eyes filled with sorrow and rage. They reached out to him with hands that were little more than skeletal claws, their voices a cacophony of despair. Victor realized too late that the specter was not just a spirit, but a warden, the souls trapped in Blackthorn Vale. It had fed on their despair, growing stronger with each passing year. The specter lunged at Victor, its form shifting into a mass of shadows that enveloped him. He felt a crushing weight on his chest, his breath stolen by the darkness. Desperate, Victor clutched the amulet, its light flickering as he recited the incantation with renewed urgency. But the specter was relentless. It tightened its grip, the shadows wrapping around Victor like chains. He could feel the life being drained from him, his strength ebbing away. The amulet's light grew dimmer, and for a moment, Victor thought he had failed. Then, a voice echoed in his mind, "The land is alive, Victor. It remembers. Use it." With the last of his strength, Victor reached out, his hand trembling as he touched the ground. He focused on the earth beneath him, on the ancient energy that pulsed through it. He could feel the roots of the trees, the stones buried deep underground, the veins of the mountain itself. The land was alive, just as his grandmother had said, and it was angry. He called upon that anger, channeling it through the amulet. The light flared, brighter than before, cutting through the darkness. The specter recoiled, its form writhing in pain as the energy of the land surged through Victor, strengthening the amulet's power. But the specter was not going down without a fight. With a final, vengeful roar, it lunged at Victor, its shadowy form tearing at his flesh, trying to drag him into the depths of the earth. Victor screamed as he felt the darkness closing in, but he refused to let go of the amulet, its light now blazing like a star. In a final act of defiance, Victor drove the amulet into the ground, unleashing the full force of the land's ancient energy. The earth shook violently, cracks spreading like spiderwebs through the town. The specter let out a scream that reverberated through the mountains, a sound of pure, unbridled fury. And then, with a deafening roar, the ground opened up beneath it, swallowing the specter whole. Victor collapsed, gasping for breath as the darkness receded. The fog began to lift, and for the first time in over a century, the moonlight shone down on Blackthorn Vale. The spirits of the miners, freed from their torment, slowly faded into the night, their souls finally at peace. But Victor knew it wasn't over. The specter had been defeated, but the land had been scarred by its presence for far too long. The energy that had sustained it was still there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise again. Victor staggered to his feet, his body battered and bruised. He retrieved the amulet from the ground, its light now a faint glow. The town was silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifted, but Victor could still feel the eyes of the mountains watching him, the weight of the land's anger pressing down on him. He knew he couldn't stay in Blackthorn Vale. The land was too dangerous, too unpredictable. But as he made his way back to his equipment, he couldn't shake the feeling that he hadn't seen the last of the specter. It had been banished, but not destroyed. And it would return, stronger and more vengeful than ever. Victor left Blackthorn as the first light of dawn broke over the mountains. He didn't look back, but he could feel the town watching him, the ancient energy of the land still crackling in the air. He knew that he had won the battle, but the war was far from over. As he descended the mountain, Victor made a silent vow. He would return, and he would find a way to cleanse the land once and for all. But for now, he needed to recover, to regroup. The Specter of Blackthorn was a formidable foe, but Victor Crowe was not one to give up easily. He was a ghost hunter, and this was his last haunt.